Blended learning after the pandemic, the flipped classroom as an alternative learning model for elementary classrooms. Case studies dating back 5 to 10 years serve as current and relevant research. As Picciano stated, in the world of technology and digital communications, 5 years is a lifetime. This article is certainly as current as it comes, being published in 2023. This case study was conducted at an elementary school named LWharton Perkotohan UPI campus, Tasikmalaya, located in Tasikmalaya City, West Java Province, India. In my interpretation, this is very similar to a college's on-campus elementary school utilized by professors for their children and also by education students for observation and implementation. For grades 4 through 6, there were 136 participant students and one novice teacher with 3 years or less teaching per grade level that participated in this mixed methods study. The students participated in the quantitative part of the study through surveys. The teachers participated in the qualitative aspect of the study through interviews. The study was also conducted in May 2022, post-pandemic. This study examines the appropriateness of the flipped classroom concept of blended learning after the pandemic in elementary classrooms previously mentioned. Additionally, the pandemic increased the learning or homework gap, which blended learning is a plausible means of addressing an inequity due to the pandemic and attempting to close the gap. The focus of the study attempts to dissect and conclude 6 key points of the flipped classroom during the pandemic. The student aims are perceptions of blended learning implemented during the pandemic, perceptions related to the importance of the flipped classroom if implemented after the pandemic, digital readiness as a pivotal factor for implementing flipped classroom. The goals for the teachers were teachers' experiences implementing blended learning during the pandemic, teachers' perceptions of the suitability of blended learning for elementary classrooms during the pandemic, and teachers' perceptions of the suitability of the flipped classroom after the pandemic. To determine the appropriateness of blended learning in the elementary classroom after the pandemic, this study's goal was to gather the perceptions of both teacher and student as blended learning in the elementary classroom both during and after the pandemic, because data is still very limited on the effects of blended learning in elementary classrooms and data resulting from that. Through surveys and interviews, the goal from the data collected was to shed light on both teachers' and students' perceptions of blended learning, especially in the elementary classroom. The blended learning concept was implemented and was a first-time experience for teachers through a home visit program. Creating the blended learning concept, this particular model included both online and face-to-face learning. The class was divided into groups and teachers visited the students at home for face-to-face learning while students not being visited learned online. Obviously, this occurred toward the end of the pandemic, and eventually, once we're fully transitioned into the regular classroom, teachers no longer made the home visits and considered the face-to-face time in the brick-and-mortar classroom and asynchronous learning to be conducted at home. Very notable percentages were discovered as the result of student dichotomous questions survey. About half of the students polled stated they liked being involved in blended learning. 60% preferred learning the materials by their teachers before coming to class. 70% of the students liked watching the videos because they could rewatch a video or segments again. More than half enjoyed learning at their convenience, and an overwhelming percentage of over 90% preferred to do homework in class to get the proper assistance from teachers. Finally, higher than 80% of the polled students had a reliable device and internet connection and were familiar with the device and apps for learning. From the teacher's perspective, all 3 educators were new to blended learning and all had a very similar definition to blended learning as they were new to the experience. The results from the survey created some teaching challenges as well as some notable benefits. Teachers believe blended learning is suitable for subjects that would be more easily understood in a face-to-face setting, and students would be more prepared before coming to class, allowing absent students to remain on pace as well. Teachers also saw the benefits for blended learning and the flipped classroom for elementary classrooms. The authors combine many benefits of the flipped classroom that can improve learning significantly by identifying that teachers can repurpose in-class time for conducting collaborative learning, discussing higher-level problems, and other activities that demand higher-order thinking skills. Multiple benefits arose from the study as well as from the teacher's perspective. The teachers were able to address and respond to students' questions face to face. Teachers were able to spend more time with students individually and offer assistance, developing students to be independent learners, as well as getting parents involved to be on the same team as the teacher to work together to best benefit their child. Additionally, for students, the flipped classroom increased student understanding and achieving learning goals and also increased student readiness for the lesson by being prepared the day before. The three challenges that the novice teachers experience coincide with previous research. Technology for teaching, developing students to become independent learners, and work overload experienced by the teachers, however, are all keys to successful blended learning. Students also needed to adjust to becoming independent learners, which eventually took time and evolved, as well as assistance from the teachers. One notable outcome was the challenge and the benefit of developing independent learners. Just like potty training is a daunting task up front, the benefits outweigh the initial challenges. The difficulties in establishing independent learners up front makes it a benefit later on by establishing an independent learning community that fosters deep learning. The results of the students' perceptions of blended learning demonstrated a sense of digital readiness, almost neutralizing the teacher's inexperience in blended learning. The flipped classroom model conveyed a sense of student centered and driven curriculum that employed more student ownership in learning. In the hybrid rotation model, the student survey analysis allows the teachers to know their students to shape future flipped classrooms to further individualize instruction to meet the needs of students and their learning styles. It is inferred that these teachers and students have social presence, insinuating effective interpersonal connections as well as mutual trust and support. Furthermore, this study supports blended learning for the elementary classroom after the pandemic. To critique this article, one must question what subject area was being taught. The article mentioned a subject area that must be taught face to face, but does not mention the specific subject. Secondly, the students and teachers have the advantage of having reliable internet access with students who were digitally ready for blended learning, which is not always the case. The survey questions for the students had a yes or no response, which would lead to and possibly skewed results. Finally, the students were supported by parents and grown-ups at home. Many educators today aren't as fortunate to have parental support in academics with time afforded to at-home learning, let alone blended learning parental support. The original definition of blended learning from the Christensen Institute still remains as in part online with some element of student control over time, path, place, and or pace. With the evolution of technology, Cronje argues that blended learning is the mix of theories, methods, and technologies to optimize learning in a given context. He argues that this is now a much broader concept and no longer just the combination of face-to-face and online learning as per the original definition developed a decade ago. The link to the article will be posted in the comments section.